I was an unfaithful wife. I recorded my encounters with other men to sell them on the internet until my son found out, told my husband, and publicly destroyed me, burying me alive. My name is Camila. I am 42 years old. I am a university professor, and until recently I led a life that everyone around me envied. I always liked to maintain the appearance of a determined, intelligent, and well-married woman. My husband, Esteban, 45 years old, is a systems analyst, a calm, centered man, the kind who seem born to be good fathers and good husbands. We had been together for 20 years. We lived in a comfortable house in an upper-middle-class neighborhood, with a good car in the garage and fake smiles on social media. Everything was meticulously built to look perfect. And for a while I really believed it was. Esteban was the type to bring coffee to bed on Sundays. He cooked better than I did, took care of the house diligently, and above all, he was an exemplary father. Our son, Mateo, was 18 years old, intelligent, observant, a little withdrawn, but very close to his father. The relationship between them has always been strong, almost symbiotic. I was happy to see that, but sometimes I felt a little excluded. Nothing serious, just a shadow. Esteban was never cold to me, but over time the marriage became more friendship than passion. We slept together, but we rarely touched. The kisses became routine. The affection became habit. I began to feel invisible. Deep down, I think I started looking outside the home for what I did not have the courage to demand inside. I wanted to feel those butterflies in my stomach again, that look of desire that makes you feel alive. But I never thought about destroying my family. I swear I did not. I thought I could keep everything running as long as I was discreet. I saw myself as a modern and free woman, someone who just wanted to fill a momentary void. Esteban trusted me blindly, and that made me feel guilty and powerful at the same time. A dangerous combination that at the time I did not know was a ticking time bomb. I knew exactly how to manipulate the image we had together on social media. We were the happy couple, the exemplary ones in the family group, the ones in the circle of friends who managed to maintain love even after so many years. It was all a facade. I smiled in photos with Esteban and Mateo, but inside I felt increasingly numb to the routine. Being a mother, wife, teacher, and an exemplary woman became a burden that no one seemed to notice. But I understood it, and when I finally started to break the rules, I discovered an adrenaline rush to which I became addicted. The first time I cheated on my husband was so casual it seemed harmless. A quick encounter with no emotional implications. I thought I could stop there, but it was like opening a door I could no longer close. The feeling of being desired, of controlling the situation, of having secrets, was intoxicating. I came home that night, lay down next to Esteban, and he did not even understand anything. It was then that I realized I could continue and that, in a way, maybe he had already stopped seeing me. Guilt became a faint memory. Pleasure became routine. Mateo, our son, continued to grow before our eyes. He was too mature for his age, introspective, the kind who observes more than he speaks. Today I see that he understood much more than I imagined, but at the time I thought he was only focused on school, online games, and friends. I never thought he would watch me so closely. Esteban, on the other hand, remained the same husband, present, calm, and in love with me. That only made everything easier and crueler. I lived two lives, one perfect and the other dark, dirty, but full of life. It was on an academic trip where it all really began. A conference out of town, a fancy hotel paid for by the university, and a night with too much wine at the closing dinner. A younger colleague, handsome, full of attitude, gave me attention like I had not received in years. It started with a conversation, then with subtle touches, and ended in bed. That night I felt satisfied and sexually fulfilled in a way I did not even remember was possible. And then I showered, slept, woke up, and did not feel guilty. I felt alive, as if I had recovered something I did not even know I had lost. I returned home with a new flame inside me. I started thinking about how to repeat that, but with more control. I researched discreet dating sites, downloaded apps with fake profiles. At first it was just for sex, but then one of the men I went out with commented that I should record it. "You are beautiful. That would make easy money." I laughed at the time, but it stuck in my head. I looked for video selling sites, forums, and private channels. Curiosity turned into fascination, and fascination turned into planning. I developed a meticulous plan hidden behind the perfect routine. I justified it to myself by saying it was a way of empowering myself. After all, I was not just a frustrated wife, I was a free, independent woman, full of desire and control. At first, I only recorded videos alone, touching myself. I transformed a small hidden room in the back of the house, which Esteban did not even remember existed, into my secret mini studio. Cheap lighting, a camera with a good angle, and a tripod hidden in a shoebox. The videos started to sell. When I saw real money coming in, I rented a small apartment downtown, simple and discreet, just to record with other men. There I felt like the owner of my own dirty empire. I had a key, a diary with my schedule, a whole second life established outside my home. As the double life grew, so did the emotional distance at home. I started inventing courses, trips, meetings. Esteban never suspected a thing. Mateo sometimes asked me why my mood changed so much or why I was so excited on random days, but I would deflect it with laughter and apologies. I felt in control. I had the husband everyone respected, the perfect son, the impeccable house, and on the outside, a secret career as a successful amateur porn actress. Everything behind the scenes, everything without a trace, or so I thought. Deep down there was a constant fear of being discovered, but this fear was precisely the spice of things. The adrenaline kept me awake at night. I looked at Esteban sleeping next to me, and I felt almost like a stranger. If he only knew, I thought with both fear and excitement. Mateo, getting closer to adulthood, also became a figure that worried me. Too intelligent, too observant. Still, I did not stop. On the contrary, I began to experiment more. New positions, new partners, new ways of filming. It was all a performance, an obsession. It was at this stage that I completely lost my sense of boundaries. I started leaving files poorly organized and hiding videos with poorly renamed names. Instead of protecting myself, I began to think I was invincible. I thought I was on top, but the truth is I was about to fall. And the fall would be so brutal, so public, that it would leave marks that would never disappear. Everything that made me feel alive was about to bury me. It was on a random afternoon when everything fell apart. I had returned from the apartment where I was recording with a new client, and I was exhausted, but satisfied. I entered the house with that smile of someone who knows they have fooled the world once again. Mateo was in his room with the door ajar, but I paid no attention. I went upstairs, took a shower, ate something, and went to rest. But in the middle of the night, something bothered me. The door to the small room where I hid the equipment was ajar. Esteban never went there, and Mateo, until then, had never shown any interest. The next day, Mateo barely looked me in the face. There was an uncomfortable silence between us. He answered me in monosyllables, avoiding looking at me. When I went in my computer that night, I noticed that the name of one of the most recent files had been changed. My mistake. And then the panic set in. That particular video had my face, my body, my voice. Despite wearing masks in all the videos, those who knew me well and intimately could recognize the face under the mask, my body, my marks, my voice, and everything was there in plain sight. Heart racing, hands sweating, breath short. I knew someone had seen it, and from Mateo's expression, I knew who. My own son had discovered what I really was. 2 days later, Esteban sent me a message asking what time I would be back from the teachers' meeting. The tone seemed strange to me. When I got home, everything was very quiet. The door to the room opened, and soon I saw them both, waiting for me. My husband and my son. In the middle of the room, a projector was pointed at the white wall. Esteban said nothing, just, "Press play." The video started. It was me moaning, laughing, doing things I never thought anyone in my family would see. The sound filled the room, and I wanted to disappear. I wanted to die right there. Mateo did not look at the screen. He looked at me as if he were looking at a monster. Esteban remained silent until the end. When the video finished, he asked in a very calm voice, "How long has this been going on?" I could not answer. I stuttered, I cried. I tried to say it was not what it looked like, but it was. It was exactly what it looked like. Then he told me he already knew everything. Mateo had shown him, they had seen the videos, the websites, the accounts, and all of this had already been sent to the family group. My parents, my siblings, my nephews, everyone. It was like an earthquake, a destruction that started there and spread like fire on dry grass. Mateo had gone through my notebook, found the files, and instead of coming to talk to me, he decided to tell his father. And not only that, he sent the evidence to the family WhatsApp group. That group full of jokes, good morning messages, and religious chain messages now had links with other men, explicit videos, saved conversations. In a matter of hours, my life became a battlefield. The group exploded. They removed me, blocked me, ignored me, and shame took over everything. Esteban did not shout, did not break anything. He simply looked at me as if I were already dead. He asked me to leave the house. He said that Mateo no longer wanted to share the same roof with me. I grabbed some clothes, a backpack, and left. The outside world seemed the same, but my world was over. I thought maybe Esteban would get scared, that he would break everything, but his contempt was 1,000 times worse. As for Mateo, well, he made it clear that he never wanted to speak to me again. My son, the child I carried, cared for, fed, now saw me as the woman who destroyed everything. The scene on the big screen was etched in my mind like a trauma. I remember the blue light of the projector, the muffled sound of my own voice moaning, and the absurd silence that took over the room. There were no shouts, just Esteban's heavy breathing and Mateo's look of disgust. It was like being in court, but there was no possible defense. The video played while my image writhed with that of another man. My face in ecstasy, my body exposed, and the judgment was already passed. I was guilty and they were my victims. When the video ended, Esteban stood up slowly. He did not look me in the eyes, he simply said, "You killed our family." Those words hit me harder than any slap. I started to cry, to apologize, and to promise that I would explain everything, but he raised his hand as if to say, "Do not speak." His calmness was terrifying, cold, almost mechanical, and that hurt more than any fury. He was no longer my husband. He was a stranger, a man who carried a broken heart because of me and had no intention of picking up the pieces. Mateo left the room shortly after, without saying a word. I saw his eyes shine, but it was not emotion, it was anger. Contempt. He looked at me as if I were trash, and maybe I was. I tried to reach out to him, to tell him that I was still his son, that nothing changed that, but he recoiled as if my touch burned him. He only said one sentence, "You are not my mother anymore." And he left. It destroyed me more than any legal punishment. The worst sentence is losing the love of those you brought into the world, and I deserved it all. Esteban gave me 3 days to leave the house. He said he would ask for a separation, that he already had a lawyer. I, still in shock, tried to negotiate. I told him I needed time, that it was still our son's house, that we could talk. He laughed, a short, dry, soulless laugh. "Even now you only think about yourself." And then he left me there alone in the room, surrounded by echoes and memories that now hurt like cuts. I went up to my room and spent the night huddled in bed, listening to the muffled sound of the television from downstairs, as if I were already an unwanted visitor in my own home. Over the following days, my life turned to dust. They removed me from the family group. They blocked me. My mother, my sister, even my nephews stopped following me on social media. The messages I received ranged from insults, disappointment, and total silence. It was as if I had died, but I was still alive to face the pain of shame. I rented a small room in a farm apartment with the money I had left from my sales. I could not record anything anymore. My name had been leaked, my face had been spread. Just type Camila's betrayal, and everything would appear. I became a joke. Nasty memes. Meanwhile, I learned from acquaintances that Esteban had started therapy and that he was also trying to keep Mateo balanced. It was painful to know that they were trying to rebuild without me, but it was also fair. I destroyed everything. I was the time bomb that exploded inside the house where we pretended to be happy. I never thought silence could hurt so much, but it was that silence, the quiet contempt that punished me the most. And when I realized it, I was no longer part of the life of anyone who had ever loved me. After leaving the house, I went straight to the apartment I used to use only to record my meetings. A small, somewhat dark place, with thin walls and the smell of sex and perversion. Sleeping in that bed where I performed my videos now made me sick. It was the only space I had left, and ironically, it was the scene of my downfall. I felt swallowed by that environment. Everything there reminded me of who I had been, what I had done, and what I had lost, but there was nowhere else to go. Was it that or the street? I spent the first few days in a state of denial, thinking that maybe Esteban would call me, that Mateo would soften, that someone from the family would ask me if I was okay. No one called. The cell phone was silent for days until messages from unknown numbers began to arrive, people cursing me, threatening me, calling me everything. They discovered my true identity. My name was leaked on the forums where I sold the videos. One of my clients, probably one of those who wanted something more and I refused, told everything. Images of me circulated in WhatsApp groups, social media, exposed channels. Montages, memes, videos with cruel captions began to appear, even voiceovers that mock my voice. I thought I controlled my content. I owned it. I no longer had any power over the narrative. The sensual woman became the public laughingstock, and the mother, wife, and teacher became a walking shame. The university removed me from classes for reasons of conduct incompatible with the institutional image. Some students had already seen the videos. Some colleagues began to avoid me. Other colleagues and parents of students, incredibly, tried to arrange meetings with me, inviting me to go out and have relationships like the ones I had in the videos. My bank accounts began to dwindle, and no one wanted to rent a new space when they saw my name. I could no longer sell videos, I could no longer teach, I could not go out on the street without feeling that someone recognized me. I started going out with a cap and sunglasses, hiding like a criminal, only without a trial, without a process, simply social condemnation, eternal. All my attempts to contact the family were ignored. My mother blocked me. My father sent a dry audio message saying I embarrassed them. My sister called me names I would rather not say before blocking me too. Even my nephew, who grew up saying I was his favorite aunt, deleted my number. It was then that I realized there was no one left. Mateo disappeared from my life as if I had died. Esteban never responded to a single message again. It was as if I had been torn from existence, a person everyone pretends not to have known. And the worst part was being treated as entertainment. People laugh at my misfortune, comment on my videos as if they were a soap opera, mocking me, my masks, my intimacy. The same parts of me, which had once been a source of pleasure and profit, were now weapons against me. I started having panic attacks. I went days without eating. I vomited from anxiety. A stroke of paranoia. The doorman saw my video. The delivery person knows who I am. Shame became an invisible tattoo that burned my skin every second. No one cares about my version. No one wants to understand how it started. They just want to laugh, point, and erase. I, who always believed myself to be strong, empowered, my own person, now could barely get out of bed. And all this was before I knew what was really coming. Because no matter how deep I thought I had fallen, fate was still going to dig deeper. I started to feel stomach pains, extreme fatigue, and frequent nausea. At first I thought it was just stress, anxiety, and constant panic. My diet was terrible, my head even worse, but the symptoms did not improve. I would wake up vomiting, with cold sweats, and spend the day lying down, without the strength to even cry. I reluctantly made an appointment at a health center because I no longer had a plan. I did the tests without haste, almost without hope. When I went back for the results, the doctor looked at me with a seriousness I had not seen in a long time. "It is serious," he said. My world stopped. I was diagnosed with advanced pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. No possibility of a cure, only palliative treatment. He tried to be kind, but the truth was cruel. My days were numbered, and the worst part, I was not even surprised. It seemed ironic, poetic, even a final punishment, a kind of justice that did not come from anyone, only from my own body, as if it were tired of me, tired of the lies, the filth, the hidden pain. I left the office in silence. I did not cry. I sat on the sidewalk bench and stared at the ground for almost an hour, not knowing where to go. I started chemotherapy treatment at the city's public hospital. The atmosphere was harsh, full of sad stories like mine. I saw people fighting to live, surrounded by family, friends, and support. And I was alone, without Esteban, without Mateo, without anyone to hold my hand while I vomited or lost my hair. The nurses were kind, but distant. I felt like a ghost among the living. My body began to weaken. I lost weight quickly. My skin turned pale. My clothes started to fall off my body. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a dead version of myself. I tried to call my mom after the first round of chemotherapy. I just wanted to hear a familiar voice, to feel that someone still cared, but she did not answer. I sent a message. Nothing. I tried with Esteban. Nothing either. I tried with Mateo and the message was not even delivered. It was then that I realized. They were not going to say goodbye. I was going to die alone. Forgotten, cancelled, with a dirty name, a stained face, and a soul corroded by everything I did and everything I lost. It was the kind of suffering that no one could alleviate. Not even God, if he was still listening to me. Every pain that came I saw as a form of payment, a karmic installment. I had caused suffering to people who loved me. I had betrayed a husband who treated me with love. I had humiliated my son. Nothing I did now would change what happened. But the cancer seemed to know it. It seemed to remind me with every crisis, with every needle, with every vomit, that there is no escape. I could deceive people, but my body knew the truth. My body knew the guilt, and it consumed me day after day, as if it wanted to cleanse me from the inside out. I started to think that maybe it was fair, not just for what I did, but for how I did it, with pride, with vanity, with that feeling of impunity. The cancer took everything I had left, my vanity, my appetite, my sleep, my will to continue. And the silence, this immense silence that stretched from my son's last word to the sound of the hospital machines, that was the worst of all. Now time was my only companion, counting the days, the hours, the seconds. Waiting, just waiting for the end to come. Although I was isolated, I ended up discovering fragments of the life that Esteban and Mateo were trying to rebuild. An old university friend, who has not blocked me yet, told me without making a big deal of it. He said that Esteban had been in therapy since the scandal, that he had lost a lot of weight. At first, he became reclusive, but now he seemed more centered. He changed jobs, left the house where we lived, and rented a new apartment in another neighborhood, a new place, without memories, a new beginning. He did not forgive me. He never said a word, but at least he was trying to live, and that, somehow, hurt me and relieved me at the same time. Mateo, on the other hand, seemed to have completely shut down during the first few months. I heard that he also started going to therapy. He had changed schools, stopped using social media, and cut off contact with almost all his friends. The scandal left its mark on him. He was a sweet and sensitive boy, and suddenly he had to face the kind of trauma that no child should experience. Seeing his mother exposed like that, and on top of that, discovering that she was the author of it all was cruel. But according to this same friend, over time he began to smile again. Small, strange, but he started. Esteban was criticized a lot at first for not noticing anything. Some people said he was passive, naive, weak. But I know that was not the case at all. He was simply good, a man who believed in the woman he slept with. He trusted in that, and who cared. And maybe that is why it hurt him so much, but also why he was able to get up. He was strong in a way that I never was. Silent, but firm, wounded, but healthy. And now, even without me, he seemed to have found a way to breathe again. I also learned that Mateo cut off any mention of my name. He never talks about me in the sessions. According to my friend, he never mentions me. He says he is focused on studying abroad, maybe studying psychology or film. Ironic, considering how much my image rotated on screens, but at the same time, right now he lives with his father, and the two seem to be closer than ever, building something that has no space for me, something healthier, cleaner. And maybe it is more true than the farce I have pushed for years. A part of me wanted to show up. Ask for forgiveness. Send a letter, a video, a request. But the other part, the one that still has the slightest idea, knows that would be selfish. They do not need it. I have no right to want to alleviate my guilt at the expense of their case. They are healing. They are moving on. And maybe the only right thing I have left to do is not to get in the way anymore. I have already caused enough pain. I have already been enough poison. Now, perhaps the least I can be is silence. Sometimes I think that if I had told you everything, asked for help, said I was unhappy, maybe it would have been different. Maybe Esteban would have tried to understand me. Maybe Mateo would not have hated me. But I chose the path of secrecy, of hidden pleasure, of easy money, and they chose the path of survival, and they are succeeding. They continue, they breathe, they live, and I watch from afar like a shadow of what I was. I hope, in silence, that they can be happy without me. Over time, the physical pain of my illness began to compete with another pain, that of conscience, that of the absolute silence of those I loved most. It is not just about regret, it is deeper. It is realizing that you destroyed everything with your own hands. I created an emotional bomb, I hid it inside my house, and I let it explode in the lap of my son and my husband. And now, alone in an apartment that stinks of shame and has passed, the only thing I can do is remember and be melancholic and punish myself alone, because no one else wants to look me in the face. Sometimes I wonder if true forgiveness exists. It is not what we ask for, but what we deserve. Did I really deserve for Esteban to forgive me, for Mateo to call me mom again? I do not know, and maybe I will never know. Karma is not an entity that knocks on your door. It is the sum of all the small wrong decisions that come back one day without a set date. And my karma came dressed in loneliness, in illness, in contempt. It came in the form of silence, and today I hear it resonate in everything I no longer have. Many people think that punishment is exposure, public shame, digital humiliation, but it is not. All of this passes. People forget, the videos disappear, the memes lose their fun. The real punishment is what remains. It is seeing a dusty frame with your son's face and knowing that he will never call you mom again. It is remembering Esteban's laugh in the kitchen and knowing that you were the last person who made him cry. It is living the days like a ghost, waiting for the pain to end and knowing that even after everything is over, there will be no peace. I no longer consider myself a person. I became a warning, an example of what not to do, of the woman who had everything and traded it for pleasure, vanity, and a handful of dirty money. There are nights when I wake up and almost forget everything, as if it were a nightmare. But then comes the pain in the body, the pain in the soul, and I remember exactly who I am and what I did. There is no medicine for that, no treatment, no cure, only time, and even time seems to pass too slowly when you are only waiting for the end. Perhaps all this happened because I thought I could play with fate, that I could have it all, live in hiding, cheat without being discovered, but the truth is that life demands. In one way or another, it accuses and, when it charges, it does not give a warning. I no longer have faith. I no longer have faith. But if there is something after all this, I hope it does not repeat itself. I hope it is a place where I cannot make so many mistakes or, at least, a place where no one depends on me anymore. If there is still something left inside me that deserves redemption, let it come in silence, without applause, without forgiveness, just with the certainty that at least I understood the pain I caused. Because no matter what happens next, I am going to carry this to the end. And maybe, just maybe, this pain is the only real thing I have left. My last link to the real world, to what I lost, to who I was. Sometimes I think that this story is the only thing that will remain of me. A confession thrown onto the internet, lost among millions of other stories that perhaps no one will read to the end. I do not expect passion, no identification, much less pity. I just want to record in all the letters that I know what I did. I guess. I was not a victim. I was the wrong choice in person, the woman who destroyed everything and everyone around her. And now, with a weak body, a corroded soul, and an exhausted mind, the only thing I can do is write. If this is the last thing anyone reads about me, let them know this, it was not worth it. The money, the pleasure, the illusory power. None of it compensates for the silence you hear when your son hates you. Nothing justifies the moment when you see the love of your life looking at you as if you were a monster. The adrenaline disappears, the lust disappears. What remains is the loneliness, the shame, and a pain that no drug, no therapy, no apology can erase. I am no longer a person, just a bad memory, an echo. I wrote letters to Mateo and Esteban, but I never had the courage to send them. They are kept in a drawer along with exams, medicines, and old photographs. Maybe one day someone will find it. Maybe they will throw it in the trash without reading it. Maybe they will serve some purpose, or maybe not. I did not write to ask for forgiveness. I wrote to say that they have the right to hate me, that it was never their fault, that they deserved more, much more, and that if they ever think of me, they do not think of me with pain, but with the certainty that you survived the worst of me. I do not know how much time I have left. The doctors do not talk about dates, but I see it in their eyes. I see when they hesitate, when they avoid using words like improvement or reaction. I feel my body slowly crumbling. Now the days are all the same, dark, long, silent. The television was on to keep me company, the pills were on the table, and I was lying on the sofa, waiting. I wait for the end like someone waiting for a bus that never comes, and sometimes, I confess, I wish it would come soon, because if there is something worse than dying, it is living being nobody to everyone. If you have come this far and you still do not hate me, thank you for listening to me. Do not forgive me, do not absolve me, just listen to me, because everyone left and the only thing I have left is this screen, this confession. Maybe it will help someone. Maybe it is just another text lost on the internet, but that is all I can give now. I have no more love to offer. No courage, no hope, just words. Words stained with guilt, written with the trembling fingers of someone who no longer knows what it is to be remembered with affection. I leave without applause, without flowers, without hugs. I do not want to be remembered as an example or as a monster. I just want to disappear. Let this be my last presence in the world. A story so that others do not do what I did. A story to show that momentary pleasure can cost everything that has real value. And if there is justice in the world, may Mateo and Esteban find the peace that I never could, in that, although they never forgive me, they know that I love them, even if it was the worst form of love that ever existed.